I'm Vicki Hogarth, and welcome to Southwest Magazine. I'm joined today by Charlotte County Pride's Tracey Matheson and Todd Ross. Thank you both for being here today.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah. Can we talk to start with just about Charlotte County Pride? When did this part of Pride begin, and who was behind it?
Well, originally it was 5 years ago. It was St. Croix Pride, and that kind of faded out. That started after the sidewalk issue of St. Stephen Middle School. And the year before the pandemic, we were Charlotte County Pride, developing a board, getting incorporated, working on events, and Todd moved back, and I kind of shanghaied him into joining us.
Todd, why was it so important moving back home from Toronto to be a part of the local Pride organization for you?
Yeah, and growing up in St. Stephen, and when I was growing up as a closeted kid, sort of when I looked around as a kid, there wasn't really anything visible as far as LGBT people in the area, and there was sort of that feeling that you don't belong, you need to leave. So when I moved back from Toronto, and having been in Toronto for 25 years, and when I moved back and Tracey invited me to one of the events, I thought, well, this is great, and we had a great turnout at the event and opportunity to meet some people, and just the thought of what can we do to sort of be a visible presence here in Charlotte County, to kind of do what people are doing across the world in celebrating Pride, ensuring that opportunity is given here as well. Mm-hmm. So when Tracey, shortly after we had the event, she said, well, I really want you to come on the board and want you to be more involved, and said, okay, let's do this, and it'll be part of giving back, so that not just young people, but everyone has an opportunity to be involved, to get to meet other people in the neighborhood. And we can also, not only do events for the LGBT community, but we can also do events for everybody, where everyone gets a chance to sort of see who their neighbors are, and come to great events like drag shows, and mm-hmm. The very successful drag bingos that Tracey's organized in the past.
I should talk to you, Tracey, about drag bingo. I think the one I went to was sold out. It was amazing to see people from all across the board from the community of Charlotte County. Mm-hmm. How did you advertise it and make it so successful, and why do you think it had such mass appeal beyond just the LGBTQ community, but it felt like a different person from every walk of life was there?
I reached out to Randy McFarland, who's a friend of mine, and his partner Sylvan Petrie, aka Roxy Champagne, and we said, well, let's do something, and because Randy's from here, and so Roxy got together with some of his friends. One of them is Miss Moore, who will be here next week anyways. But so we just said, let's do it. And I was nervous because you didn't know how people were going to respond. And I remember standing there and I'm like, we're sold out and everybody is having a good time. It was pure joy. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because they have a message of like, be who you are, be confident, love each other, and how can you not have fun with drag queens? They're mm-hmm. amazing.
One of my favorite quotes is a RuPaul quote that says, we're all born naked, the rest is just drag.
Exactly, exactly.
Charlotte County Pride Walk has been happening for 4 years, I believe. This year, though, was, from my understanding and from my experience of going to Charlotte County Pride, was the biggest that you've had thus far in terms of the number of people walking. It was a really moving day. Can you tell me a little bit about the growth of the walk and what it's grown into?
Well, I mean, our first couple of years were small, and then during COVID, we really didn't have one. We did last year. So this year, the restrictions were open up. So our goal is most of the walks have been in St. Stephen, but it's not fair. Charlotte County isn't just St. Stephen. So Todd said, let's do St. George, and he arranged everything, and then he laughed.
I did travel.
Yeah, he travels a lot, but it was okay. It was great. But there were so many people, and I think there were some things that really stuck out to me, like seeing all the kids. And I know a lot of these kids from where I work, and it was just amazing to see them like dancing, and they were like so excited to do this. And the minister, when she spoke, that really just like, that was amazing. And I think it was just, everyone was so excited to be part of it, and it's inclusion. You know, like, we're here, we're everywhere, let's do this. So
There was a church involved in the walk this year. Can you speak a little bit more about that and how they became aligned with the walk?
Well, I know we had a group, a lot of the kids came with a Christian group. My brain, I can't remember the name. I was so heightened that day. And then as we were walking through St. George, the church on the corner there, they were handing out water and flags, and it was like, well, this is different. And the minister, that's the church where the minister was from that spoke, she was like asking people to forgive her for her previous judgment. And I don't know if she realized how much that meant, like, especially maybe so much with our generation, because, you know, you're doomed. If you're gay, you're doomed, you're going to hell. So it was, to me, that was what really got me, was the fact that she was so honest and vulnerable, and I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
Is it, to see that across the generations, I felt that same feeling when I was at the walk, because you see this younger generation where it just seems so much easier in a good way, and that's thanks to the work of previous generations. But also in rural New Brunswick, sometimes you don't have that big atmosphere of a city where it's easier to find the place where you belong sometimes if you feel like you don't. Why is it important for you both to be a part of Charlotte County Pride? You could take it to, you could join St. John Pride, Fredericton Pride if you wanted to give back, but you're doing it right at home. Why is that important to do in rural New Brunswick?
Yeah, and I think it's about creating space. And, you know, if you drive around St. George, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, you see pride flags everywhere. And, you know, it's wonderful. So we always think that, you know, there's a large community in St. John, there's a large community in Fredericton, and that's where you have to go. That may have been the case 50 years ago or 30 years ago, but now there's no need to go to the city. That, you know, my partner and I can easily go to any restaurant. We can go to any public place. We could walk down the street holding hands. Not likely, but we could. And it's, you know, there's no need to go to a large city because the inclusion is here. So it's really about celebrating the inclusion that we have here in Charlotte County. We had a cottage on Campobello for a number of years while we were living in Toronto. And I mean, people on Campobello were so welcoming that we never had an issue while we were there. And same now that we live in St. Andrews. I mean, it's so welcoming here. So it's about celebrating the inclusion that we feel now, and we want to ensure that other people feel when they come here to visit or to live.
I don't want to date any of us, but I think even in my own lifetime, I'm in my 40s now. I remember the 90s, as you know, there was a sense that people could be open, but it wasn't like it is now. What are some of the markers over the course of your own life where you've noticed that times changing? And I want to tie that a little specifically to this part of the world.
Just, I don't know how to say it. There's more people. Like, there's more people in our community. They're living their lives. Flags are everywhere. It's like, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my own journey, I was closeted as a young person, and when I had my first job, I was closeted. I got fired for being gay in the early 90s. And, you know, then I sort of looked for employment where that would not be a concern. In the 90s and into the 2000s, we saw changes in legislation. We saw changes in public attitude where people began to realize that love is love and we need to be accepting. And but it was really a lot of the changes in legislation. It was changes through the courts that we saw society kind of catching up to a place now where you would never imagine somebody being fired from their job for being gay. One, it's illegal, but just to think that that would be an issue for anyone, that who you love would be an issue. So things really have changed since the early 90s to now, and you see it here.
And what about you, Tracey, in your own life? Have you found it easier over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come out till I was 48, so I've and the younger people, because I'm a mom, I have 5 children, a lot of their friends have come out to me, and I'm always, in my mind, I was like, I'm so proud of you, and I talked to them about it, but there was still that fear of myself coming out, because, it was, I guess, from an older generation. And then my mother passed away, and I just realized, no, I've got to live my life. And I met someone, and, I came out, and I've been living, for the first time in my life, not a lie, living for who I am. And when you look at the young people in our community, you see them holding hands. They're just being authentic to who they are, and it's inspiring. It makes me that's where I feel I get my courage from, is I look at the kids and I'm like, look at them go. I'm so proud.
I know in a lot of groups that are fighting for equality for all different reasons often look to pride groups, because especially over the past 25 years, pride organizations have done such incredible work fighting for equality, and it's inspiring. Why do you think that it's been so successful? That in a way, 25 years is a long time, but the amount that you've covered pride in 25 years to get to the world we're at today has really been a 180-degree change. Why do you think pride organizations have done such a good job fighting for equality and creating a more inclusive world?
Well, I think in Canada we've been very fortunate with the introduction of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that was something that, although sexual orientation wasn't initially in the Charter, it was placed in, it was read in by the courts, and I believe a lot of the gains that we've had in the LGBTQ community are through actions of the court originally, and then it was sort of governments catching up to it. So, and even with same-sex marriage, that was something that had to go through courts, and then the government made the changes to it. But it was all sort of fighting at every level to make small changes that eventually led to larger changes. And by no means are we done. There's still so much more that needs to happen. We just saw the federal ban on conversion therapy going through, which is a major milestone for Canada and for the communities. There's still work that needs to be done for inclusion, to eliminate racism, or not racism, but to eliminate the discrimination that is happening. But we've seen that uphill climb, and it's gone from a steep climb to a more gradual climb. And I think through pride organizations and through people coming together, we've been able to celebrate those achievements while realizing that there's more to work on, and we continue to do that work.
And I mean, it's a universal message. Don't judge me for who I am, right? And I think a lot of other groups see that's what pride's about. So if they feel that they're, let's get involved with that. But if it works and if it helps other people, go for it. But that's the basic message, is just let us live our lives, be who we are, and celebrate each other. Right?
What would you say is some of the work that still needs to be done?
Well, certainly around transgender rights, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on LGBTQ plus healthcare, access to health services. There's some major work that needs to be done there. Working with elderly LGBT people, even when I was in Toronto, this was an issue that when you go to a senior's home, suddenly you have to go back into the closet. And so finding that acceptance for all age groups. And then assisting internationally, I think, is something that because of our privilege here in Canada that we've been able to achieve so much. When you look around the world in countries where it's still illegal to be gay, you can be killed for being gay or imprisoned for life. I think that we have responsibility as well to assist there.
And what about sex education for our community in the schools? There's nothing. And, you know, we have to look after everybody's health and well-being, and I think it's time that the school boards start looking at, it's not everyone fits into this, you know, little cookie cutter that you have. You have to educate all of us on, and it's a very important matter. It can save someone's life. So that's something that I've been hearing about and kind of more interested in, because you know, want people to have a healthy start in their life.
Yeah, and when you talk about assisting internationally, I think a lot of us were in shock this year when we were looking just to the U.S. And what's happening with women's reproductive rights and what that could potentially lead to in terms of a step backwards. And I think sometimes when we look at progress, we forget that there's always that potential to lose it too. We always think, okay, what's the next step forward? And not realizing that something like this could happen that we're seeing with Roe versus Wade in the U.S. So is that a concern? And also a reminder that we still have to fight for what we already have sometimes.
Absolutely. It's, you know, we also saw in the U.S. where, so I'm a veteran, we saw where the previous president banned transgender people from serving in the military. And I mean, just through simple, one person was able to do that, and suddenly the rights of a large group of people who were openly serving in the military, suddenly they were losing their jobs. Suddenly, you know, young people weren't able to join the military as a result of that, or people had to continue to hide who they were as a result of those changes. So we always have to be on guard, because it is so easy for our rights to be taken away. And then that's not something that you would expect you would be talking about even 10 years ago, of our rights being taken away. But it's a real threat, as we saw with Roe versus Wade. So we just need to make sure that, you know, education becomes a large part of what we do, so that we're building allies as well. So that if there ever comes an opportunity where any of our rights are being taken away, that we have those allies to stand up with us.
And when we speak of allies, can we talk a little bit about Charlotte County Pride and allies? It's an important part of what you do as well. As you mentioned, your events being open to all. What do you say to people out there who consider themselves allies in terms of getting involved with the organization as well, and not seeing it as just something if you identify as part of the LGBTQ community, but that you can also be involved if you are an ally?
Yeah, absolutely. We welcome allies to be involved.
We couldn't be without them.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, it's part of education is come hang out with us and learn about our community, and so use our events as opportunities to do that. If you want to get involved, you know, come to the Pride March. It was great. I believe she was a United Church minister.
Yes.
It was great to have the minister come out and bring, you know, people from the congregation and speak about her past experience and present hopes. That those are the things that really continue to build our community, because we're focused on pride here in Charlotte County, but it's also about building a more inclusive Charlotte County. It's about building better neighbors across the county for us.
Can you tell me a little bit about, I know that the pandemic has obviously thrown a wrench in so many of our opportunities to gather over the past few years, but I'm not saying we're in a post-pandemic world yet, but we are able to gather again. Will you be having dances, get-togethers? I know you've done many successful ones in the past. What's the plan?
Next week we're having a drag performance at the Civic Center. Super excited about that. And, you know, then it's just back to the drawing board, figure out what people want to do, and then we'll set up events and go forward.
Okay. And if people want to get involved with Charlotte County Pride on a more regular level, what are some of the ways they can get involved with what you're doing?
Well, you can find us on Facebook. We have a Charlotte County Pride page as well as a group. So find us on there, reach out to us. We'd love to have you involved. We're looking, I believe next year we're talking about doing a Pride Parade in St. Andrews.
Nice.
So we've had St. Stephen, this year we were in St. George, so we'd like to walk down the street here. So reach out to us, be involved. I know you and I have talked in the past about a boat cruise that,
I like that idea.
we're let's get it planned for next year. And as now the border is sort of opening up and more people can come visit, let's use this as a way to highlight Charlotte County and the great things that we have here.
I have a dream, Tracey, of out at sea, boat cruise, lobster boil. Let's do something that only we can do
I
in the
like
Maritimes,
that.
and maybe
Yes.
Pride is one of those things that I think people travel for too. So
Yes.
why not show how Pride oriented we are here by having people from Montreal, Toronto come to us instead of people from Charlotte County often traveling to, if you go to New York, Toronto or Montreal Pride
Right.
events, why not make ours one that people decide to travel to as well?
I think that would be something we could
I'm
do.
throwing it out there.
Yeah, I'm all for
Out
it.
at sea.
We'll talk.
So get in touch with Todd and Tracey.
Yeah.
What are your overall plans for the future? Where would you like to see Charlotte County Pride grow to in the future years, 5-10 years from now?
One of my big things is I wanted to be involved in this because of the kids in the community. I would love to be able to set up like a scholarship for someone in the GSA. You know, more everyone. There's a lot of like pride you associate it with drag queens. Don't get me wrong, I love drag queens, but there's more to us than just parties, like, you know, and having a good time. There's artists and writers and poets and musicians, and I would like to be able to facilitate a way to, you know, help them nurture and grow and, like, you know, and just revel in who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my focus is on helping the kids.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Todd?
Yeah, I think providing more opportunities throughout the year. So having a successful Pride Week is great and raising the awareness in the summer, but also having events through the year. So everything to, you know, we've done games nights before, just coffee drop in, just for an opportunity to come and for people to meet. There's a few groups province-wide that you see where people will move into the area and they're looking to connect with other people and may not have those opportunities. So by having more opportunities through the year, it's for a chance for people to connect. And also, you know, if people are having a hard time, it's a chance for them to come and chat with others.
Yeah. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with viewers at home about getting in touch?
You can reach me like on the Pride page, the Pride group. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and everyone pretty much sees me around and out and about in the community. Just holler, say hey, and I'll talk to you. But you know, it would be nice to have more people involved, more hands, more work can be done.
Okay.
And it's great to see, you know, as I mentioned early on, as you drive around Charlotte County, seeing the Pride flags everywhere. You know, seeing initiatives like here in St. Andrews where they put up the Pride flag every year on the main street. Seeing the inclusion of the sidewalks, those sorts of things are incredible. And I recognize the work that individuals are doing as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I know James Whitehead has gone around in town a few years handing out Pride flags that he buys himself. And those types of things are just incredible. Mm-hmm. And we'd like to, you know, continue to do the work we're doing and supporting others in the community and the work that they're doing.
Yes, and I should mention James Whitehead has been instrumental in, I believe, Sunbury Shores does often a Pride Month gallery showcase as well that features artists from the LGBTQ community, I believe from all over Southwest New Brunswick every June. So if we can build on that here in St. Andrews, I think that there's a lot of great Pride stuff that we could even grow that month into, or the whole summer, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you both so much for being here today. I will continue to follow all the work you do, and I hope you will keep me informed of all the events you have coming up, as we'd love to be a part of them as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
My guests today have been Tracey Matheson and Todd Ross from Charlotte County Pride. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.